Hi, welcome to my video on the art history timeline. We're going to start by looking at the rubric. You should have a copy of this. If you don't, you won't know the expectations. The rubric is helpful to let you know what I'm expecting to see and how I'm grading on you. I don't like secrets, so this is what you need in front of you so you can get all your materials available so that you can do this quickly. So this is kind of where we start with what we actually want to end with. So here's your rubric. This is an example of what your timeline might look like. This is just an example of how I created this as an example to show students. Yours may look different, and that's okay. Different is not bad, it's just different. As long as you have followed the rubric, you'll be able to get this information onto a timeline and get a good grade. So when we are looking, and we're just going to go to our rubric for now, when you're looking at your art history timeline rubric, the first two things are kind of givens. It needs to be orderly, easy to read, and well organized, and you need to watch for those conventions. That's capitalization and grammar that you're using throughout the timeline. The next four things here are really the things that are most helpful to students. You need to be able to represent 6 of our art periods that we studied, and you need factual information from each of these 6 art periods. These need to be correct, with correct dates, and represented on your timeline. And this factual information, you need 2 pieces of factual information for each of these 6 art periods. We also studied 4 artists, and you need to represent those 4 correctly on your timeline, and the 4 art pieces that we studied. These art pieces need to be indicated on the timeline. So let's look at an example. We're going to go back to this. Here is Edgar Degas. Edgar Degas was born before this timeline started, and this is his death date, and this is how I chose to represent Edgar Degas. And notice we represented the 4 artists. I've represented him correctly with his dates and his art piece. And we read we analyzed a picture of the dance class, and that was in 1872. And so I have a little asterisk there to indicate that. There's a little note here at the bottom. It's a special note just so you know that you haven't done anything wrong, that the lives of Edgar Degas and Pablo Picasso will either begin or end off of the graph paper. So that's not you, that is just a limitation of the graph paper. Let's go a little out of order here, but with the representation of the 6 art periods, here's one of the periods we talked about with realism. Notice I gave a start year, and an end year. And it also asked for 2 pieces of factual information from each of these art periods. This one happens to list 3. So you'll need 2 pieces of factual information for each art period. So maybe you're asking, I'm not sure, where did you get those art periods? Well, here are the documents that we used. I collected these from a student, and this is going to be the most helpful. We had an overview of the art periods, and here is where I got my dates. You also have one that's kind of hidden, and that is your 6th one. You need to complete this assignment: your article on Edgar Degas, your article on Vincent van Gogh, your article on the bombing of Guernica, and finally your article on pointillism. These articles will help you complete everything you need in order to get a full 3 on every part of this assignment. One thing that's really helpful in your organization, and if you're watching this video, you've probably missed or been absent or somehow not gotten this turned in. One thing that is really helpful in the organization is to write down what you need. So this tells you that you need the art periods, and it also says that there are 6 of them. And I've already told you that the realism period begins, I'm going to get out my overview, begins in 1848 and ends in 1900. And I've also told you that you need 2 pieces of factual information from this, and you're going to get that information from this article. So you'll write down the 2 pieces of factual information there. You'll do this for the 6 art periods that we studied, and you'll have that piece of information for your timeline. And you can list that in any way you want. Remember, you can do it differently than I did. The point is it orderly? It needs to be organized. The next thing that your rubric asks you for is the 4 artists. And you need to somehow represent them on the timeline. Well, to represent an artist, you might want to, the easiest way, the way I'm looking for is their birth and death dates. You have 4 artists. We already talked about Edgar Degas. And Edgar Degas, if you want to look at the paperwork on Edgar Degas, it's right here. And here are his birthday, birth year, and the death year. So it's 1834 to 1917. You'll do this for each one of the 4 artists that we studied, and that will be able to show on your graph a representation of those 4 artists. And then you'll want to put, for this last one, the representation of the 4 art pieces. Each piece that we studied is correctly represented, and you'll want to find, and you'll be able to find those in your article, the piece that we studied. The piece that we studied actually is embedded in here. It's the dance class, and it was published in 1872. So I'm going to come up here and put the dance class, and then I'm going to make a note that it was 1872 when it was published. So now I have all my information to write down after you finish your 6 art periods with the years and 2 pieces of factual information, your artists, there were 4 of them, with their birth and death years, and one of their works. Specifically, I'm looking for the particular piece of art that we studied in class and the year that it was published. I hope this video is helpful. This is a great way to get a good grade. It's a lot of information that you can put all on a timeline and kind of look at where people were, who was alive when other people were alive, and look at the different art periods that we studied and how they kind of overlap and start and finish. So I hope this is helpful. I'm looking forward to grading your piece and looking forward to a great grade. Thank you so much.